awoke from the illusion, Semilia was beside me, pale. She had been the first to wake, and immediately sought me out. Terwin's soul and memory, housed now in my arm, enlightened me about this world. I saw it for what it was. The prophet worshipped by the Order was me, from a prior world. Each time Geoffrey Libron bore witness to the end, he placed his hope in a new, nameless sorcerer. In the vague, distant future.
If the prophecy holds true, awful things await you.
I set off despite her attempts to stop me. She looked ill with worry. Some paths cannot be abandoned, even if they lead to despair. I felt sure I would make the same choice should the world repeat 10,000 times. It would be ironic if that same stubbornness played a part in the world returning as it does. But even so, I won't leave Magusa to shoulder the burden of an unfair world alone. And if I truly had passed on my hopes to him in a prior life, then all the more reason. For I chose to believe those hopes had yielded this fate. Panic on her face, Semilia called out to stop me.
But is it? Is it really all the same?
I had my doubts as well. After all, the prophecy mentioned nothing of the great dream that had trapped mankind.
If I had never heard those words, I might not even have been here.
This is where your story begins. The words I had spoken in a prior world changed a girl's fate in this one. It was an optimistic thought, but perhaps the course of the world had been altered. Semilia looked as if she'd had an epiphany.
If we destroyed that, then maybe...
It was absurd. But if such a thing did happen, it would surely drive the world further off course. A big if. And how had she even thought of such a ludicrous plan under these conditions?
Here. It was just here. It appeared right before me.
I suddenly understood why she looked so unwell. She says it floats before her still. Another worldly, white vessel. Time marched towards its end once more. The sacred chalice, bestowed upon the world by one of its creators in order to see their divine will given form, or so the story goes. Then why appear now? Why present itself to Semilia?
If we destroyed this, then who knows?
The chalice has a role in the eternal recursion, true enough. She may be right. Removing it from the equation might yield some change. Might alter the nature of this unfair world. That hope soon died, and the realization it left stung deep. The chalice was an artifact given by the world's creator. I was naive to dismiss it as legend. We both were. Clearly, the world's recursion was the will of some great consciousness. And the chalice remains connected to that being. We were taught that our brief conspiracy to destroy the chalice was a treason upon the very nature of the world. The moment our spells struck it, space itself tore violently open. Perhaps that vast consciousness noticed us from past the veil, took note of our tiny rebellion. I have no words to describe what appeared before us then. One rises in my mind, though, that begins to encompass its all. God. The will of the Creator, given form and place. Black bolts of divine judgment flashed brighter still, then lashed out to claim us both. I moved to shield Semilia from the brunt of it. And yet, it was she who pushed me aside. I saw her body flayed and broken. Perhaps we provoked the Creator's ire in our efforts to defy the nature of our world. Or perhaps that divine wrath was proof of something else. That we were succeeding in driving the world off its ordained course. And then, another flash appeared. It seemed almost human, this thing grappling with the giant. They clashed and locked, growing more distant by the minute. For a fraction of a second, I saw a face I recognized. No. Could it be Magusa? Our moment of despair passed, leaving us in stark silence. I approached Semilia's body and lost whatever words I'd planned to say. I tried to patch her wounds, but she merely shook her head.
It's too late. Just, please, stay.
How much more would be taken away before the end finally came?
I know. To you, I'm just one of a long line of acquaintances. But you're the first one who even remembered my name. The words you left behind found their way to me. They saved me. If this is fate, then the gods are spiteful beings. But you understand, your first partner was dear to you too, no? That's what you are to me. I feel no different. Sortiara was her name, wasn't it? Your old partner? I heard you whisper it just before you woke up from the illusion. I wish I hadn't. It was hearing that name that brought it here to me. Hearing that name is what called the chalice here. The wish that brought it was impulsive, raw, stupid emotion. I didn't want to save the world or anything so noble. It was a childish desire. I wanted to be special to you, to be your one and only. But I resisted. I couldn't do that to you, violate those cherished memories. Please, just let me die. If you'd know when my soul became a part of your arm. You'd know. You'd see my heart, all my jealousy and envy and the ugly things inside me. I just couldn't bear it. But please, just remember this of me. Remember, I was glad that I met you. If the world's doomed to repeat, I look forward to meeting you again. I won't be able to stay with you, inside you. But please, think of me sometimes. Please.
I took the apple she had held and placed it in my robes. A meager memento. She'd refused to dwell within my right arm. With this, I'd be able to recall the red of her cowl no matter how addled my memory grew. Some distance away, Magusar remained locked in combat, bringing his own will to bear against that avatar of divinity. Despite the mingling of memories and collapse of his identity, it remained within him. The duty to change this cruel world. He'd come from the previous world as a sorcerer with no name, bearing the hope that the world could alter. From his unusual actions, I could see what he was trying to achieve. Like Semilia, he sought to destroy it. I knew it must be there, hanging before him now. A chalice only he could see. Thunderclaps pierced the sky. I felt they were a chorus of ill omen, harbingers of despair. A Artificia split the sky, and white light poured through it. I was made to bear witness. To watch the world pass sentence on a man with the hubris to rebel. A second giant descended. It was a sight taken directly from legend. The Chalice's destruction. Was that not the nameless sorcerer's aim all along? Even while he traveled with me, Magusa sought the Chalice. The reason he pursued it changed as his memories addled. Perhaps in the beginning, he'd set out to save the world. I couldn't rid myself of this thought. Rebellion against the Creator. It was the nameless sorcerer's will that had brought this about. It was a futile battle. Yet, I could not help but find hope in it. I knew he couldn't win. I was sure something in the world had changed. It was a subtle victory. Magusa kept on fighting. Long after losing any semblance of normal consciousness, my partner muttered something under his breath. The words were strange, yet familiar. They filled me with courage. This is where your story begins. I had to pass those words on, even if the world's end claimed all else. Had to see them safe to the next world's Red Hood, to be her hope. I thought back to Persepius' last words. The trail of one man's life can be another's beacon of hope. Perhaps our journey is a battle to pass on that torch. A handful of humans were able to draw the very gods out of hiding. Let that fact shine as hope for all we can accomplish. For now we'll struggle till the last breath leaves us, so that those who come after us might take courage from our story. The world may end, but dreams will persist. Magusa couldn't age or die. Even that was the result of conscious preparation for the day he would fight the gods. I believed that. Anyone would, having witnessed his tenacity. These memories the nameless sorcerer brought with him. The words and thoughts that he carried beyond the cycle of the world now shook it. This is where our story begins. Those brief words were all it took to change the fate of the girl in red. We now faced the gods because she sought to destroy the Chalice. Were it not for those words, the world may have ended differently. long did the battle last? In the end, Magusar fell, and the gods took hold of his body. Now they're pawn. Magusar came for me. I was torn apart, limb from limb. The only reason I still live is because my partner, now a monster, shared his blood with me. His immortal blood has made me a difficult man to kill. Even now, with his mind gone and his body stolen away, my partner still exists, somewhere deep inside. If I truly hope to take up his mantle, I cannot back down now. I must stand resolute against the gods raging within him. And so, our arduous fight began. For years we fought. Until, losing all humanity, he became a tyrant, the whole world in his grasp. Sacrifices were brought from every quarter to extend his life. Each passing battle claimed more of me, until barely scraps of flesh remained. But I never lost hope. How could I, considering all that I'd inherited? It fell to me now to pass that on to my successor. That final wish changed my body. I took on a form well suited to the passing of knowledge. I was struck, seeing my body. Books of magic are oft referred to as grimoires. Grimoire. Grim. I could not think it a coincidence. The Prophet Grimm was, in truth, a grimoire, a book of prophecy. A single glance, and I was sure. The knowledge I passed on this way would educate those after me, even in ways I couldn't imagine. If miracles do exist, no man is capable of prophesying them. That is precisely why, no matter what the crisis, we mustn't turn away from it. Hope can always be found if people pass it on.